In 2005, scientists found a creature alive that had been extinct for 11 million years. Not extinct as in gone for a while, extinct as in this thing was only known from fossils older than most mountain ranges. Today we're counting down 10 animals that were officially declared extinct, sometimes for decades, sometimes for millions of years before somebody stumbled onto one, very much alive. Number 1 on this list was basically nature's version of a ghost story, until it wasn't. Every one of these is real. Real fossils, real extinction declarations, and real, very awkward moments where scientists had to publicly admit they were wrong. If this kind of thing fascinates you as much as it fascinates me, subscribe because we're doing this every week. Alright, let's get into it. Number 10. The Shikone peccary. Scientists described this animal in 1930 using nothing but fossilized bones. They assumed it had been dead for thousands of years. Then in 1975, in the middle of a remote Paraguayan forest, some local hunters described an animal to a biologist, and he realized they were describing something that was supposed to not exist. They walked him into the forest, and there it was, a living, breathing, snorting Shikone peccary, the exact animal that had only ever existed as bones in a drawer. For 45 years, this animal had been living its entire life just outside where anyone bothered to look. Turns out the region it lives in is so thick, so hot, and so hard to travel through, that basically nobody had bothered surveying it properly. There's now an entire conservation effort built around this one species, an animal that, technically, spent decades filed under does not exist anymore. Number 10 down. Number 9 involves a lizard so rare, scientists only had one single photo of it for years and thought that photo was the last evidence it ever existed. Number 9. The terror skink. Yes, that's really its name, was known to science from exactly one specimen, collected in 1876. That was it, one dead lizard in a jar. For over 100 years, nobody found another single one, anywhere on Earth. In 1993, researchers finally rediscovered it alive on a tiny, remote New Caledonian islet, a place so small it's barely visible on most maps. It's genuinely one of the most bizarre-looking lizards alive, with teeth so oversized for its head that it honestly looks like a puppet designed by someone who'd never seen a real lizard. The entire known population today lives on that one tiny island, meaning this animal exists in one single spot on the planet, and nowhere else, period. One storm, one introduced predator, one bad year, and this species could vanish again, this time for real. Number 9 down. Number 8 is a bird that vanished for 300 years, and everyone just assumed it was gone for good. Number 8. The Bermuda petrel, also called the cahal, was thought completely extinct since the 1620s, wiped out by sailors, rats, and pigs brought to the islands. For roughly 300 years, this bird existed only in old sailors' journals and a few fossilized bones, basically a legend. Then in 1951, a scientist and a teenage boy climbed out to a tiny cluster of rocky islets off Bermuda and found 18 nesting pairs, quietly surviving the entire time. That teenage boy, David Wingate, ended up dedicating his entire career to saving this bird and lived to see the population grow from those 18 pairs to hundreds. Today, conservationists have built entire artificial nesting islands specifically designed to keep predators away from this one bird species. A bird declared extinct for 3 centuries is now Bermuda's national symbol, printed on their currency. Number 8 down. Number 7 is a tiny primate that basically pulled off the same trick, disappearing for over 80 years. Number 7. The pygmy tarsier, a primate the size of a mouse with eyes bigger than its own brain, was last seen in 1921 and declared extinct decades later. For 8 decades, it existed only in museum specimens until 2000, when researchers accidentally caught one in a rat trap while studying something else entirely. The scientist was so shocked, he reportedly bit the animal's tail, an old field technique to briefly stun rodents, before realizing what he was actually holding. 2 years later, a proper expedition went looking specifically for live ones and found several, quietly living in the mountain forests they'd always called home. These tiny primates are nocturnal, silent, and live high in remote mountain forests, basically the perfect combination for staying invisible to science for 80 years straight. Number 7 down. Number 6 belongs to an entire species of wild dog that vanished from the scientific record for half a century. Number 6. The New Guinea singing dog, known for its uniquely melodic howl, was believed extinct in the wild for over 50 years, with the last confirmed wild sighting back in the 1970s. A few hundred remained in captivity in zoos, but scientists assumed the truly wild population had been completely wiped out by human expansion into their mountain habitat. Then in 2016, a hiking expedition photographed a wild dog in the remote highlands of Indonesian New Guinea that looked suspiciously familiar. DNA testing in 2020 confirmed that these were genuine wild descendants of the singing dog, the actual wild population everyone thought had vanished decades earlier. This meant an entire wild population had been surviving undetected in some of the most remote, difficult-to-reach mountains on the planet for half a century. Conservationists now consider this one of the most important wild dog rediscoveries in modern history, a genetically distinct, ancient lineage that almost slipped away entirely. Number 6 down. Number 5 is a giant, and I mean genuinely giant, tortoise that everyone assumed had been gone for over a century. Number 5. The Fernandina giant tortoise was known from a single specimen collected in 1906, and after that, more than a century of absolutely nothing. For over 100 years, that one tortoise sitting in a museum was the only proof the species had ever existed. Scientists genuinely gave up looking. Then in February 2019, an expedition found fresh tortoise droppings and bite marks on cactus pads on the island, signs that something big was definitely still alive there. Days later, they found her, an actual living Fernandina giant tortoise, estimated to be over 100 years old herself, slowly wandering the volcanic slopes. This meant a single tortoise had potentially been alone on that island for over a century, the last of her kind, quietly surviving with essentially zero contact from her own species. Scientists are now searching for more, hoping she isn't truly the very last one, because if she is, this rediscovery comes with a bittersweet deadline attached. Number 5 down. We're halfway there, and number 4 is a bird nobody had photographed alive in nearly a century. Number 4. The night parrot of Australia was so rare that for nearly 100 years, there wasn't a single confirmed living photograph of one anywhere on Earth. It became something of an obsession among birdwatchers, a mythical creature that everyone believed existed, but nobody could actually prove was still around. In 2013, a wildlife photographer named John Young finally captured video and photographs of a living night parrot, ending nearly a century of uncertainty. He kept the exact location a closely guarded secret for years, terrified that if word got out, the tiny remaining population could be disturbed or destroyed. This bird is so shy and so nocturnal that even now, with its existence confirmed, actually seeing one remains one of the hardest things in all of bird watching. An entire species spent almost 100 years as basically a folk legend before turning out to be real, alive, and hiding in plain sight the whole time. Quick pause: if you're enjoying this as much as I enjoyed making it, subscribe now, because the next 4 stories get genuinely wild. Let's keep going. Number 3. Wallace's giant bee is exactly what it sounds like, a bee the size of your thumb, with a wingspan wider than most adult human hands. First discovered in 1858, it was seen only a handful of times before vanishing completely from scientific records for over 120 years. Some assumed it had gone extinct due to deforestation on the remote Indonesian islands it called home. Others simply forgot it had ever existed at all. In 2019, a small expedition team went specifically looking for it in Indonesia and, against genuinely long odds, found a single living female in a termite nest in a tree. The team member who spotted her first has said it was one of the most emotional moments of his entire career, realizing he was holding a species presumed gone for over a century. This rediscovery made international news almost instantly. A genuinely giant, genuinely rare insect, found alive after everyone had essentially written it off. Number 3 down. Only 2 left, and number 2 involves an entire lost world hiding in plain sight in the middle of the ocean. Number 2. The coelacanth was believed to have gone extinct 65 million years ago, vanishing alongside the dinosaurs, known only through fossils and rock. For decades, textbooks confidently describe this fish as an extinct ancestor, useful only for understanding how fish evolved into land animals millions of years ago. Then in 1938, off the coast of South Africa, a museum curator named Marjorie Courtenay Latimer was sorting through a fisherman's unusual catch and spotted something that shouldn't have been possible. The fish she found matched, almost perfectly, the exact species everyone had assumed died out alongside the dinosaurs, a living, breathing dinosaur-era fish, pulled straight out of a fishing net. It's genuinely one of the most significant zoological discoveries in modern history, proof that an entire lineage everyone thought had vanished with the dinosaurs had actually just been quietly living in deep ocean water the entire time. Since then, a second population was discovered off Indonesia in the 1990s, meaning this extinct fish has actually been quietly surviving in at least 2 separate parts of the world this whole time. Number 2 down, and now, number 1, the fossil creature that beat every single one of these by living underground for 11 million years. Number 1. The Laotian rock rat, also nicknamed the rat squirrel, was known exclusively from fossils dated to roughly 11 million years old. Scientists considered it one of the oldest confirmed extinctions in the rodent family. This wasn't a "we haven't seen it in a while" situation. This animal existed purely in the fossil record, alongside creatures from an era so old, its closest living relatives were long gone too. In 1996, local villagers in Laos brought a strange, unfamiliar animal to a market stall for sale, and a visiting biologist noticed it looked disturbingly similar to something he'd only ever seen drawn in old scientific papers. It took several more years and careful genetic testing, but in 2005, scientists officially confirmed it. This living animal was the exact same species known only from 11-million-year-old fossils. This meant an entire lineage everyone confidently declared extinct before humans had even evolved as a species had actually just been quietly living in remote Laotian limestone caves the entire time. Researchers now call this one of the most dramatic rediscoveries in the entire history of zoology, a species that outlasted an extinction event so old it existed before most of Earth's current mountain ranges had even fully formed. And that's number 1, the creature that quietly outlived an extinction event most of us never even learned about in school. Alright, let's do a quick recap of everything we just covered. A wild pig-like animal hiding in a Paraguayan forest for 45 years. A lizard existing on one tiny island and nowhere else on the planet. A bird that came back from 300 years of assumed extinction. A tiny primate accidentally caught in a rat trap after 80 years missing. A wild dog population that survived undetected in remote mountains for half a century. A single ancient tortoise, potentially alone for over 100 years. A parrot that spent almost a century as basically a myth. A giant bee found in a termite nest after 120 years. A dinosaur-era fish pulled straight out of a fishing net after 65 million years. And a tiny rodent that survived 11 million years, quietly outlasting an extinction event most of human history never even knew existed. 10 completely different species. 10 proofs that extinct is sometimes just science's polite way of saying we haven't looked hard enough yet. And this is genuinely just the beginning. There are entire lists of extinct species that biologists quietly suspect might still be out there, waiting to be stumbled onto. If this genuinely surprised you, subscribe now. Next week, we're covering 10 more animals that pulled off this exact same trick, and some of them are honestly even stranger. Comment below which one of these 10 rediscoveries surprised you the most. See you next day for 10 more reasons why extinct might be one of the least reliable words in all of science.